Haiti borders with the Dominican.
Her name is Serena Buffalino. They call her Mrs. B, and her class always begins with a pledge.
Something local, something global. Haiti.
They're words that carry weight here. Helping yourself means helping others, giving back, here and a world away in Haiti.
And nobody's helping them, except for people like us.
It was through her the class learned of Haiti, of the nearly 1 million orphans, many with no school, no support, no Mrs. B in their lives.
They could not wrap their head around that.
Mrs. B's students are among Toronto's most at risk. Their challenges vary from emotional and behavioral difficulties to learning disabilities. Their trauma so severe they can't function in a regular school setting, and we aren't allowed to show most of their classmates.
For most of the kids, most of society has turned them away. And in this classroom, they're accepted. They're accepted no matter what for who they are.
Take Yolanda. She came here last year so burdened and withdrawn, she would often fall silent, sometimes for days on end. It was, she says, Mrs. B's patience, her quiet encouragement, that saved her.
She actually saves people's lives from dangers.
And perhaps that's why these marginalized kids feel such a kinship with the orphans of Haiti, and why they were moved to act.
And so when Yolanda and Jackie and Patrick said, well, Miss B, we need to build them a school.
Build a school, no easy task. They started out raising money. They sold samosas, washed cars, screened movies, you name it. And in just a few months, this little class raised $20,000. So much, it's not just a one-room schoolhouse they can build, but a full 3-story school. And so Mrs. B set off on a journey she'd dreamed of, up into the dusty mountains above Port-au-Prince to a town called Canaan. It's home to thousands of earthquake refugees who live with no running water, no electricity, and no school, until now. The first step was a temporary school. It's up and running. 53 students already in uniform. The permanent school for 250 is growing from its foundations.
It makes me want to cry because she just makes me feel so awed, and I'm very proud of her.
All of this because of a handful of students back in Canada, and Mrs. B, the teacher who believed in them.
These are for you.
At another fundraiser, a special tribute to the students, accepted by someone who, without Mrs. B, might not be here.
They believe in me and I believe in them, and together we not only change our lives, but we change the world around us.
For inspiring great things and seeing the potential in everyone, Serena Buffalino is this week's Everyday Hero.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Laura Armstrong. You can see I just got caught in the rain. So I am here to talk about all things leadership and communication. And oh my gosh, my hair. So today we're going to focus on the communication portion. So last week I talked about what is your bank code. So what does bank code mean, right? So it's a personality assessment that I use to not only increase my sales, but create better relationships with people and have a strategy and a step-by-step process around connecting with others and having a strategy to boost my business. So it's more than just a personality assessment, because I believe a lot of personality assessment they tell you a lot about yourself, which is really key. And we always want to know more about ourselves. Let's just admit it. But the thing is, this is reverse engineered. This is why it's unique, to teach you how to speak to the values that are important to those that you interact with. And I think that that is so key. And, you know, a lot of the time, and I talked about this last week, we lose out on that connection factor when it's not someone who's our personality type. So the ability to learn this is going to eliminate a lot of that for you. So though it may not be your natural state, you'll be able to get out of your natural state and into their natural state to have a conversation that's two-sided, not one-sided where you're like, oh my God, this guy is so weird, right? You'll actually understand the values that are important to him or her so that you can have that conversation in their values, because they're not the one learning bank, you are, right? So are you going to apply it and use it in your life and your business? You know, once you start to learn this, you can't unlearn it, right? You have to be applying it every moment you're breathing, which sounds a little fatalistic, but the fact of the matter is, the more you get into the habit of something, the more it becomes a routine, okay, and a pattern, right? And then you become unstoppable. I look at people in code. Every time I'm talking to someone, I'm like, okay, what's their primary code, right? And I'm looking at them and I'm watching them and I'm actively listening to them, and I'm making sure that when I do speak, it's to think, okay, they sound like a nurturer. Well, I'm going to talk about communication. I'm going to talk about connecting, personal growth. I'm going to talk about community. All those things are important to nurture. So that's what we're going to cover over the next 4 weeks. And today we're going to talk about the blueprint, which in the acronym BANK stands for blueprint. Now you can imagine that the blueprint, what color would that represent? Blue, right? So just thinking about what that means, it's, you know, blue is kind of the color of being a little bit cool, a little bit cold, very conservative and predictable. They're very much, blueprint personality types are very much in the box rule followers. So if it's not in the box and by the rules, they don't do it, right? So for me, someone who's the opposite of that, that's very hard to absorb and believe, right? Because I'm like, are you kidding me? That's like so restricting to me. But to them, it's a way of life, right? It's the values that are important to them. So I want you to keep that in mind. I'm going to go over a few of those values today, and we'll kind of talk about, how to interact or communicate better with someone who has these blueprint values. So the first one is stability, right? So just like an architectural blueprint, stability is critical, right? Stability of your company, your product, your service, as a person. My husband is high blueprint. So he's very stable, right? And that's one of the things I love about him, but it's also one of the things that drives me nuts a little bit, right? That's his natural state. So when I'm talking to him, I got to make sure I have a process around what I'm talking about and that it's dependable and that we can count on it, right? The next is structure. So you must be very structured in how you do things. I have a great story about this. So my insurance guy came over and we needed to get more insurance or set up a new policy. And so he total blueprint, right? So he comes in and he's got his little briefcase. He puts it down. He literally pulls out 3 piles of paper and puts them beside each other, right? And I'm just sitting there smiling, and James looks at me, and I look at, my husband, and I look at him, and I'm like, oh, blueprint. And he just kind of smiled, right? Because he's seeing that he is a blueprint. He's seeing it reflected in the other guy, right? So anyways, we go through the meeting. I really like this gentleman. I've known him a while from a networking group. So, we have a good rapport. And so he starts to go through what, his process of like, I talk to you about this. What are you looking for here? A, B, C, D, right? And so he gives us all the information. I just needed to know 3 things. How much is it? What does it cover? And is it are you giving us a good deal? That's all I care about, right? But for a blueprint, it's very different. So he had his 3 stacks of paper. It was 3 visits to make sure everything was covered. And, he had his process around how the meeting was going to go. So, I'm sure I threw a wrench in all of that. And he knew I was doing bank training. But it was funny because he knew I was doing bank training, but he didn't know that much about it. And I said, okay, John, this is after 20 minutes of talking. I've got all the answers I need. I've convinced my husband, because I speak his code, that we've got everything we need. We can move forward. And he was literally shocked. And I said, we're ready to go. Where do we sign? He goes, what do you mean? He said, we should talk about, this and this. And I said, yeah, we talked about that. Right. And he goes, but I need to go through the details with you. I'm like, I don't need the details. I trust you. Right. I said, I know you have our back. And he didn't know what to do. He was like a fish out of water. Right. So I'm like, wait a minute, Laura, remember he's a blueprint. I said, so what do you need for us to close? That's what I said. What's going to make the most sense to you? And I could tell he really wanted to come outside of his comfort zone because he understood I didn't need all those processes he was normally used to putting in place. And I said, he said, well, we need to fill out these papers and I need you to sign. And he said, I can come back and go over things and let you know about the costs. And I'm like, yeah, you're welcome to visit, but if you can email us the info, we can close everything tonight. And so he did come back for the second appointment, and I could see that was important to him, right? And so we finished everything off. He's normally a 3 appointment guy. And then when I met him in the networking group a week or 2 later, and I said, great work. I said, we really enjoyed it. I'm so glad we could support you in your business. He goes, yeah. He goes, you guys knew what you wanted. I'm like, and then I started teaching bank, right? I was presenting bank that day. He came up to me afterwards. He goes, you're in action. And I said, yes. I said, you could have closed me within 20 minutes. He goes, what? And I said, yeah. And I said, what if all you did was close actions all day long? And we're going to talk about this next week. He goes, wow. He goes, that would really bring me a lot of business. And I said, not only that, you're going to get referrals because you do such a good job, John, right? Like he really did do a good job. And so anyways, it was really interesting. So he ended up taking a lot of my training, my communication training, and he now lives in Barbados and sells insurance from Canada and the house of his dreams, right? So you can see that his income skyrocketed. Even as a blueprint, he was able to get out of his own head and into his clients' heads to serve their needs properly, right? And so I'll never forget that conversation. And I said, you could have had me in a 1-call close. But not only that, we kept a good relationship. Like when he sends me an email, it's very formal. It's very, structured. And I respond in kind. And I use our artificial intelligence that we have, which is an innovative tool that we'll use to make sure that we're responding in the right code. If you guys want to know more about that, you can just email me at laura@leadershipwithlaura.com. I'm happy to chat with you about it. But, I always thought this was such a great story because it's the perfect example of a blueprint, and even on the second visit, he pulled out all his papers in his briefcase. And so when he came to the trainings afterwards, he goes, you're talking about me. And I'm like, yeah, that's you. That's exactly you. And he goes, I didn't even realize. And I said, but that's okay. That's who your values are. I said, but if you really want to be successful, John, you got to get outside of your head and into other people's values and understand them by asking key questions. He's like, this is so valuable. Why isn't everybody doing this? And I'm like, exactly. So whatever you need to do, some people are just naturally good at it. They naturally can adapt to, how they speak to others. But don't let me get off track here. So I want to talk a little bit more about the blueprint values. So the next one is systems. So they value systems. So system can be an acronym as well for save yourself, time, energy, and money. Okay. That's what a blueprint believes systems do. That's why they do it. It keeps them organized and structured. So where in your process can you focus on systems and walking your client through a sequential process? So even though that is not part of who I am, I always make sure to mention when I'm talking to people about taking my leadership or communication courses, it will give you the step-by-step system you need to achieve your goals. It's literally like music to their ears. Okay. The next one is planning. One of a blueprint's most valued assets is time. You must respect their time and you need to plan. You'll often lose a sale with a blueprint by simply being late and not calling ahead. I know a story of someone who had a meeting. She was selling insurance or investments. It was something like that. And she showed up 10 minutes late. Traffic was late. She didn't let the person know. She was only a couple of minutes late. She sat down, greeted the person and pulled out the papers. And he's like, wait a minute. He goes, you were 10 minutes late and you didn't call ahead to let me know you're going to be late. How are you going to treat me when you have my money? Right? So I don't think we can do business anymore. And that was a loss of a $75,000 commission. Right? So how much impact do you need in your life to make sure that you're going to show up on time? So for those blueprint personality types, make sure you're early. They're going to be earlier than they are. Okay. And the other thing too is don't throw them a surprise party. I learned that the hard way, right? Like even going on vacation, we have to have an agenda, right? Like, so that's just not something I do. Vacation is like, woohoo, free. We're going to go do stuff, right? But no, the blueprint has got the whole day planned out, or they've got a structure around what they want to do. They totally, it's how they can relax, right? It may not be how you relax, but it's how they can relax, right? So the moral of the story, don't be late for anything with a blueprint. It's a deal breaker. This is one other thing. Don't, when you call up and you say, have you got a minute? They don't have a minute. You have to book an appointment with them. Perfect example for you. I was connecting with someone who is a high blueprint. And I knew that she was blueprint. And I said, yeah, we should get together. Let me know what time works for you and we'll book an appointment. And like, that's what she needed to hear. She's like, okay, I'm available this and this. Let me know what works for you. So I did. Right. And so they're not the type of person that you can just, do you have 2 seconds to chat? They don't, because that's outside of their agenda. Okay. And it's not predictable. Right. So just remember that. Okay. So processes, you must take them through a step-by-step process, show them exactly how things go and the product works. And you have to be able to back that up. Do not cack out on them. Okay. And that leads to predictability, which is another value. So predictability means no or low risk. So if you've got a product, I speak with leaders of a network marketing company and they sell Forex. They're Forex traders. And they don't have a lot of blueprints in their company. There's only one, really great leader who's a blueprint. And it's because a lot of it has to do with that Forex trading is risky. Even with the learning component where you're minimizing your risk, it's still considered a risky venture. So they don't have a lot of blueprints, right? So if you've got something that's slightly risky, you've got to come up with a way to talk about how to minimize that risk. And you could do it in a couple ways. Well, you know what? If you go through the modules in the university and you learn all of this, you're going to minimize the risk of making mistakes or losing money. Okay, that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to say to them, look, if you don't take advantage of this, it's going to be more risky for you, right? You're going to have more of you may have a bigger problem on your hands if you don't step forward into it, right? So those are kind of the two ways that you want to approach the risk. The other way you can do it is, if your company's been in business for a lot of years, you've been doing what you're doing for a lot of years, they want to know that they can count on you and that you've got some sort of, background where you're dependable. It's really important to them to have that. They have to have that reassurance and that guarantee. Okay, so you're not into risk at all. So very risk averse. Next is responsibility. Excuse me. So that really speaks for itself. They're responsible. They take care of things. They arrive on time. You have to do the same, right? So if you're inevitably one of those late people, you really have to get outside of your comfort zone and show up early. Don't let your blueprints impatience kick in, because that's going to be lost time, lost money, and lost business, but also lost referrals for you. So the next one is duty, and you could also use obligation here. It's your duty to take care of your client, and follow up is important. Your product has a duty to perform the way you say it will. So if you go in there, don't make it a flash in the pan and exciting for them. They don't care about that. They want to know the facts, the information. If you do this, it will do this. And you have to be able to back that up. Okay, you have to be able to follow that up and make sure that you deliver on your promise. Okay, super key. Next is the rules. So blueprints don't just love the rules, they expect and demand them. So if I say to you, rules are meant to be, what do you say? Right? For me, I say rules are absolutely meant to be broken because that's the way I think. But for a blueprint, they are absolutely meant to be followed. That's exactly how they see things. They will follow the rules to the letter. Okay. They don't just love rules. They expect and demand them. They also like to enforce them. That's why a lot of occupations for blueprints are things like people in uniform, officers, army, where there's a chain of command, where everybody knows what they're doing, the rules they have to follow, and everything that they have to get done. It's very predictable. A lot of people in government positions are blueprints, people who sell insurance, or investments, accountants, or bookkeepers, like if you think of those ledgers, how structured they are, anything kind of like that is going to be a very structured person. A lot of CEOs or higher ups in companies have high blueprint because they have to organize the rest of the company and make sure that the structure of it makes sense and it's running profitably. Okay. You're going to see it time and again. If you code people in certain areas, you're going to see the specific trait of blueprint show up again and again in specific positions, specific areas of expertise, right? You're going to see it again and again. All right. So next is credentials. Credentials represent authority and credibility, and blueprints love or value authority. Okay, so if you are the authority on a subject, you have been, you're the authority on a subject, or you've been studying for 50 years, you have a PhD behind your name, or, lots of letters behind your name, they care about that. I am a 3-time world champion martial artist. I've been teaching and training for over 30 years. They're like, okay, so she knows what she's talking about. I have a few letters behind my name. They usually don't know what they need to mean, what they mean, but they know that I've taken the time to create those letters and those certifications. Those things are really important to them. Okay. Titles, which kind of goes in with credentials. So if you don't already have a title, bring someone with you who does, or refer to them using their title in your sales presentation. CEO and founder. I run my own company. I run 2 companies, actually. I'm a 3-time world champion martial artist, certified and licensed trainer. I've got all of those titles and credentials. Those are the things that they want to see. Okay. So if you're not tooting your own horn and that's uncomfortable for you, you need to start doing it if you want to have a better interaction with the blueprint. You may not care about that stuff. I really don't care about that stuff, but they do, and they need to hear it because they need to raise you up in their eyes so that you are worthy in their values to work with or, interact with or have a relationship with, whatever it is, right? Perfect example, the lady I was talking about before, high blueprint. Once we got into a conversation, I let her know about the accomplishments that I had. She goes, I knew you were up there. I just didn't know how much. So I knew that I raised myself up in her eyes, and I didn't do it for my ego, but because as a blueprint, I knew she needed to hear it, right? So it's never about you guys, right? So once you get that, things are going to get so much easier for you. And it becomes this almost game or puzzle that you try to figure out what people's codes are. And it's really fascinating. Lastly is tradition. Tradition in the sales process means history, right? So even in relationships, when you're talking to people, there's a certain way you interact with people. Like blueprints don't like change. So they can tend to get stuck in things, right? When you change your product or your business or something around, you can't just do it like that and expect them to be okay. You have to give them warning to say, hey, you know what? We're discontinuing this in about 3 months. So when that 3 months comes up, they're like, oh yeah, that's right. She told me about that. They need time to assimilate all the information that's changing, right? So minimize the changes, not just in your relationships, but if in the sales relationship and process as well. Because what's going to happen and what this comes down to is what you're doing is you're minimizing the risk for them if you give them as much notice as possible. Okay. So they're going to feel like, okay, I don't need to go to somewhere else because she's given me notice. I'm still on track, and the best thing you can say to them is says, no worries. Not much is going to change. This is what's going to change. Make sure it's true. Okay. And then follow up with them. Okay. And just say, remember, we talked about this is happening in a couple of weeks. It's almost like you have to babysit them a little bit, but they need that because it's going to make sure that you minimize the risk that they're going to have to be involved in. Okay. Now, respect for tradition means that you also must dress in a more traditional manner. You'll be able to identify blueprints by what they're wearing. So they're very formal. They'll wear a business suit, men tie, the whole deal. Women usually in formal attire, and they speak very formally. And they're the way they greet people is, a formal handshake, right? Which is not used so much now, but it could be a nod. It could be handing a business card. It could be something like that. So that's a little bit about the blueprint personality type. I really feel like they're such a valuable contribution. This is, your bank code is made up of 4 different codes. This is my last bank code. It's the thing I do the least, but it's the thing I've improved on the most. And it's because leveling up my business, which has been happening the last year, I've had to put those systems and structures in place to make me successful. And now it's reaping rewards. So my blueprint score has come up 5 or 10 points, 5 points from where it was, which is a big deal, right? So just keep in mind that your codes can change and you can implement things from different codes to bring in and actually shift who you are. And this is the process of self-growth and how not only we understand others better, but we understand ourselves. So that's me for today. I'm Laura Armstrong with Leadership with Laura. Hey, join me on Clubhouse in our Leadership Warriors room. You can follow or join the group. We have that every Monday and Thursday. So I'm on at 11 o'clock today Eastern. And there's a come on in, and we always have a great subject we talk about. And I'm also on Clubhouse on Tuesday mornings at 8:30 with our Leadership Warriors room. Make sure you contact me with any questions or concerns. I love to hear your feedback. You can check me out at leadershipwithlaura.com or email me at laura@leadershipwithlaura.com. Check me out on IG, send me a quick message, say, hey, Loved your show. Want to hear more? Let's have a conversation. I love to hear more about you and what you do. Join me next week when we talk about the second personality type, the action. And it's going to be really fun and exciting. All right. I will see you guys all there. Have a great week and talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Welcome to the Diamond Spotlight interview. I am Barbara Beckley, the founder of the Diamond Factor LLC, where the mission is to empower women to understand their PPD, their purpose, their passion, and their drive. And this platform is to make sure to increase their visibility and shine like a diamond to the world. So today we are spotlighting. I always call the lady Queen Diamonds. So we have royalty in the house, Miss Sandy Bartlett. Oh my gosh, she's a mindset coach who helps women own their magic by tapping into their inner strength and wisdom to embody their inner, and I love this, badass. She's also an author. She's an international bestseller, and the list goes on. And Queen, thank you for coming on the Diamond Factor Spotlight interview. How are you doing today?
My pleasure. Good. I'm doing great. It's a great day.
Great day, and you look fabulous. And I always, like I said, I always like to get to know my queens, the people that I interview. And I'm telling you, I could just go on and on, just what I was finding out about you, what you do. And the one thing I always like when I interview the ladies is to really find out, before they just became this magnificent celebrity. I always call every woman celebrities because I think you are. I think you're just a celebrity to me. I don't care what anybody else says. That's what I say. And, when I think about it, I said, but you know what? They did some things. They went through some things, challenges, stuff maybe here and there. They got to that point because we all do. So I want to know, what made you just say, you know what? I am going to tap into these ladies. I want them to really understand their badass in themselves. What made you want to do that? What started it?
Oh my gosh. Probably because of my own struggles and my own journey through the years. Just everything. It's interesting. I just went back recently and was kind of just looking at some of the things that have made me who I am. And I just want to be able to share that with other women and help them so that they can benefit from the struggles that I went through and everything that I've done, to become, who I am. It's kind of my passion, if you will. I just want every woman to shine and to be who they are and to be that badass, because there is a badass inside every single one of us. And we
I
just
love it.
need to own it, and we just need to love her, and we just need to, embody her and be her. And, and badass, it's what you make it. I mean, I'm sure most people, when they think of badass, an image immediately conjures up. And when I take them through my program, they learn a little bit differently. It's, it's
Mhm.
how they define, that badass. Speaking up for themselves, using their voice, and not, being the people pleaser that sometimes we want to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you can't do that, but doing it in your way.
Definitely. And I'm loving, Sandy, that, you are already taking them to let them know that you have something in you that needs to ignite to come out. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, we all have our geniuses, our what we have, that little burning passion inside us, like you have. So I'm loving how you're saying that we got to bring that out now. Okay. I can't hide it no more. It's there. You have
Exactly.
a voice. Like you just said, you have a voice, and be bold in it. And see, like
Mm-hmm.
you said, people look at certain words, badass, boldness, and they be like, oh, she just wants to, And I'm like, stop it. I hate when people do that. They start taking them words and they change them because it's so the norm of what they see. Like, no, this is something that's inner that needs to come out to make them be who they are, to make them whole, so people can hear their
Exactly.
voice. So I'm glad that you help, especially women, come out of that. And especially, you're like that. I always tell people when they're coaches and they're helping people out, you're like the lighthouse. You're like that light. Like, you can be coming, how you see the caves and they have the little lanterns going to try to find their way. Kind of that lantern. You're the light that says, saying, okay, let's bring that badass out. There you go. Here we are. Here's the light. I'm going to be your light through this. So thank you for doing
Exactly.
that, because we need more. We need to multiply you, because there needs to be more coaches and mentors to do that. So now just want to ask, because I know that there are many like coaches and mentors that deal with women to help them understand their inner selves and bring it out. So what makes you a little bit different than the rest? Because I know there's a big difference that is awesome.
Right. Um, I think because of the way I do it, for me, badass, it's like I want them to bring out their inner self, but it's actually it's an acronym for my program. So yeah, so every letter of the word badass stands for something that I take you through, in the program. And so one of the things that, that I believe makes me stand out is the fact that you get to meet your inner badass through a guided meditation, and then you get to call on her throughout the rest of the program and throughout, your day-to-day life. I was just working with a gal who, we did the meditation. She got to meet her badass, and her action steps for the week were to tap into that badass every day. I'll be talking with her again Sunday, but she's supposed to be tapping into her every day, and just get curious, about what's going on, and, tap into and ask herself, what would my inner badass do? And be comfortable with just, talking to that inner badass and following her. So I think that's a lot of what I feel like makes me stand out. Being able to tap into that and encourage them, to get comfortable with their inner badass. So.
I like how you said that, not just because sometimes you can, you have somebody help you, and then it's like, okay, we'll take 2-3 hours, or maybe once out the week, and after, okay, bye. But what you do is you really dig deeper and you walk through the process with them, and you tell them, like you said, this is not going to work if you don't do it, even when I'm not around. See, and I love how you bring that
Exactly.
out in them, saying you have to do it because, like they said, the biggest learning is repetition. I mean, you have to continuously do that. And I love how you walk them through that so they can say, well, you know what, but Sandy's not here. Because, sometimes we get, held onto our coaches and we're like, oh, no, I want Sandy. But Sandy's like, I'm here, but you have to do it, on your own to have the whole impact of it. So that, yeah,
Exactly.
yes. So now
And
you
I
said
think
the bad,
that's
it's
what
like, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, I think that's what makes the difference with a coach, is that a coach is really just drawing it out of you. You already have it within you. They're just helping you tap into it. We're not necessarily going back and, I mean, there's some techniques you can use to go back and, but we're not like a therapist that's getting to the root of necessarily, what your past. We're more about, okay, let's acknowledge it. Now let's move forward. How do we move forward?
Yes.
So,
Yes. And like you said, Sammy, sometimes, because a lot of times people don't even realize what they have in them. It
agreed.
sometimes takes another individual to say, you know what, you have this and this. I see it. I see it. So it's like, I know sometimes you see some of your clients, you see, it's like it's right there in your face. You see it, and they're telling you, but I don't know, Sandy. I don't really see it. And I know you're probably bowing your head like, but it's there. You're just so I'm here to help you with that. And just, yeah, I'd be like, oh, there, it's there. And then I was thinking, as I was saying this, is, when you see things in people, it's almost like, I'm going to use Wonder Woman as an example because I just love Wonder Woman. And, she didn't know. I mean, she was a child. I mean, when you see the story of it, and it took mentors, now when you think about it, took mentors, her mother, sister, aunt, all that happened to say, you have it in you. And then when she found out, then she had to get it honed in to know how to use it. So that's kind of like what you do is, okay, now that you found your badass, let's learn how you can use it to your advantage in the way that you need to use it. Like you said, your voice, people understanding who
Exactly.
you are, not being timid. So see, you're a coach,
Exactly.
you're Wonder Woman.
I actually have a little model of Wonder Woman sitting on my desk to remind me.
See, we're both going to say, I got one right over here next to me. I got a little Wonder Woman statue. that reminds us. See that? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing's wrong with that.
Exactly.
Nothing's wrong. It's just funny how that went because we both had that. See, gee, great minds think alike here.
Exactly.
So now I was going to ask you, Sam. Now I know a lot of people because you're expert at this. Now, if there was some individual, because listeners, some of them are like trying to be a coach, or maybe they want to be in that career. What was the first tip that you would give somebody to say if they want to be like, oh, I want to be like Sandy, I want to be a badass coach? What first kind of quality or tip that you would give them?
To become, in terms of becoming a coach,
Yeah.
Find a good training program.
Mm.
There's a lot out there. Do your homework. Find what resonates, with you. Talk to people that have been through that, the different programs. Find out what did they like about it, what didn't they like about it, what would they do differently. I would just ask a lot of questions, which is kind of what I did. I talked to some friends that had been through some different programs, and I got their information, and so I did my homework. And I would suggest that, to anybody. And then probably even dig deep, to ask yourself why. And part of, going through, depending on the program you go through, the program that I went through, they did help us, pull that out, coming up with, with our why. And it, mine has changed a little bit, along the way as I've dug deeper. But I would say that's the main thing, and have a real deep desire. And I would also say, don't, don't go into it blindly thinking, well, anybody can do that, because it's not as simple as, okay, well, I did my program and now I'm going to start this business. It's not as easy as that. It takes a lot. You're becoming a business owner. There's a lot, there's a lot to do. It's not just take this program. Okay, now I'm ready for clients. There's some marketing that goes into it. There's, research. There's all kinds of things. I mean, I've been on this journey now for 2 years. I did the initial training and then I ended up signing on to go to the next level. So I just actually finished the mastery level.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I have 4 actually certifications. And I chose the school that I did because it was dual. It was dual health coach and life coach. And I wanted both. And then I have the transformational coaching certification as well as the mastery certification. And that was, each level you're going, a little deeper. But it's been a fabulous road. It's been a lot of great learning. But it's also a lot of work. So I would say don't go into it thinking it's necessarily easy. I just have to take some classes and then I magically have clients, because you still have to, do your marketing and you have to build that know, like, and trust factor, which I've been doing, along the way. So, and the badass system, signature coaching system that I created, I've just launched that actually not long ago. And that I'm so excited about it, because it's just,
that's awesome.
It's, it's just, I feel like I have this program, to offer. And most coaches, I think, are doing the coaching based on their own experience. That's, because you want to nail down what your niche is. And so mine, is working with women on confidence, basically, and then I came up with the signature program. So I would say, don't fool yourself. That's probably the biggest tip I could give somebody that wanted to be a coach is, don't fool yourself into thinking it's just going to magically happen, because you do have to put a lot of work into it.
Very good advice. Very, Sandy, good advice. Thank you for bringing that up, because a lot of times, like you said, people say, oh, I'll learn this and boom, I'll have these clients and I'm okay. And I'm like, okay, you need to live a little longer. It's going to take more than just, I mean, some things come, I know it's divine in certain areas that happen sometimes, but you got to put the work in no matter what you do. I mean, you have to put the work in and then learn and listen. I think the biggest things that I've been talking about this a lot lately with individuals about active listening. It's one thing to be, doing this, but there's another, that's why we have 2 of these. I always tell people that it's really important to listen, because you don't know what you're missing out on by you thinking about what you want to say next. It's like, listen.
So true. Listen to hear, not to respond.
Thank you. Thank you. If we could just say that so loudly to the world, I think that would make a lot of things a little bit different. As you can see, as you get into the world, than just so. But what I like to do, Sandy, is I like to give you for the any last words or any just wisdom or guidance that you want to give the listeners. So what I do is I take myself down for a few seconds, and then let you just talk to the listeners, and I'll just bring myself up, and we can wrap up from there. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be right back.
Okay. So I'm talking to the ladies mostly out there, but if there's gentlemen watching, maybe you have a lady in your life that needs to hear this too. But ladies, we all have that badass within us. We need to use our voice. I can tell you for myself, I will tell you, I felt like I was relying on others for my own happiness. And I felt like I was a chameleon sometimes, that I was just kind of like going along with whatever, anybody wanted to do. And I learned through a lot of difficulty, and I won't go into all of those right now, but I learned along the way that I'm responsible for my own happiness. I have to use my voice. And it's been a long road, but I have had to, I've learned to do that. I've learned to speak up for myself. I've learned to, honor my established boundaries and honor them. I've learned to say yes when I mean yes and no when I mean no. So often I think especially as women, we have a tendency to say yes when we really mean no, and then it doesn't suit us. It doesn't serve us well. You have to take care of yourself. Self-care is so important because you can't pour from an empty cup. So, and getting to know that inner badass is part of doing that, and part of taking care of yourself and being able to, serve others. We have a tendency as women to put others first. And we need to put ourselves first, and that's not a bad thing. And you don't have to feel guilty about it. I know so many women, and I've worked with clients that they feel guilty if they do anything for themselves. And you have to raise yourself up. You have to own your own magic and recognize that, and embrace and embody that inner badass to be able to help others and to live the life that you're meant to live.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I just love hearing the queens just talk about the genius and the wisdom that they have for other, as for you women, because I know we both work with the women. So thank you for putting that out there to them and reminding them of, how special they really are and that you can help them. So I'm going to say this, as people know me on these spotlight interviews, reach out to Sandy. Reach out to this lady. You see, come on now. I mean, that's why I bring them on, so you get to know them. Heard the conversations. Now, what I always say, put some action to it. Reach out to her. And when I'm saying reach out, so I want to ask Sandy right now. Sandy, how can they reach out to you?
Probably the easiest way would be to go to my website, which is www.thesandybartlett.com. And there's a way in there. It talks about my different programs that I can do, and then there's a link in there to connect with me. That's probably the easiest way that I can tell you right now. I also have, if you're on Facebook, I have a group on Facebook called Mindful Confidence for Women. And I post all kinds of positive messages in there, keeping people encouraged and promoting the positivity that we all need. It's a safe place to express yourself, to be curious. There's no judgment. So that's probably the two best ways to reach out to me.
Ooh, I got to get into that group. I love it. That's good.
Would love to have you.
Yeah, Sandy. So thank you so much again, lady, for taking the time today to be on the Diamond Factor Spotlight. Like I said, I love spotlighting, as I call you all queens. So you just do so much for others, and you help people transform their lives. And to me, that's a huge thing. So thank you for being the Wonder Woman in people's lives. And I wish you continuous success in your business and in your personal life. And if anybody's listening to those, thank you for joining us with another edition of the Diamond Factor Spotlight with this wonderful queen today. And you can join the Facebook community under the Diamond Factor Experience. If you want to be spotlighted, just reach out to me in Messenger. Let's get you on the calendar and get you out here so people can get to know how important that you are, and you can express your PPD, as I call it, your purpose, your passion, and your drive, so that you help others and be just an impact to the world. Thank you again, Sandy. I appreciate you, and you all have a wonderful day.
surprise.